My husband spent 20 years massaging life back into a 1969 Mustang fastback, bolt by bolt, kiss by grease-stained kiss. When I opened the garage and saw polished concrete instead of chrome, my son smirked and said he sold it to fund Paris. Grief turned to a hard countdown when the dealer called. "Ma'am, your husband left something inside. You need to come now," and in that instant I understood there was still a way to pull the handbrake before everything valuable rolled off a cliff. You're watching Revenge Files. Subscribe for a new twist daily. I didn't cry in the garage. Not then. I stood in the low smell of oil and concrete and dead leaves and counted what I had left. A paper trail. A title. A husband who documented everything like a man preparing for a moon launch. The car was my last conversation with him, and my son had sold it with a shrug. The Mustang wasn't a showpiece, it was a promise. Michael started it in 2004 after a layoff at the plant in Grove City. He bought a shell for $1,200, dragged it into our single-car garage in Columbus, and then, paycheck by paycheck, he repaid the insult with polish and patience. He taught me to read casting numbers. He taught me that a wire brush could be prayer. He died on March 12, 2024, with his hand on a fender telling me to keep driving it. I transferred title into my name that May because the probate clerk told me to finish something he started. I kept his files in a banker's box labeled Benton, Mustang, all. I checked the fluids every month. I started the engine on Sundays, except one Sunday in August, the keys weren't where I left them, and dust told the truth the floor already knew. "Where is it?" I asked. My voice was flat. Tyler leaned on the door jamb like the garage was his bedroom. "I sold it," he said. "Bree and I are going to Paris. Get over it." I heard the words, but my eyes looked for the dent in the corner bumper Michael never fixed on purpose. I looked where the engine heat used to rise and turn cold air sweet. I saw empty space and my son's new shoes. He held up both hands. "We need this trip before the baby. It was just sitting here. That car was worth our entire story," I said. He rolled his eyes like I was being dramatic. He was 26 and newly married. He loved shortcuts and podcasts that promised them. He had no patience for torque specs or permitting lines. But then my phone rang. "Ma'am, this is Buckeye Heritage Motors," a man said. "The blue fastback? Your husband left something inside. You need to come now." I didn't ask how they found me. I grabbed my purse, the banker's box, and the laminated insurance card with the agreed value rider Michael fought for. I drove to Hilliard with my hair uncombed and my jaw clenched. Buckeye Heritage sat in a brick building between a used tire place and a deli that sold cold brew on tap. Chrome winked in the window. The owner wore a polo with his name stitched in red. "I'm Rick," he said, as if we were friends. "Let me show you what we found." He led me to a service bay. There was the Mustang, Acapulco blue. The paint wasn't perfect. The car breathed quiet heat. On the passenger floor sat a scuffed Pelican case with blue tape. In Michael's block letters it read, "If garage is ever empty, open." My hands shook. I released the latches. Inside was everything my husband could carry into the future. A spare key, a slim binder with VIN photos stamped by the painter, the agreed value endorsement at $138,000, a dead man's letter in a sealed envelope, and an AirTag taped under a label that said, "Toolbox." I looked at Rick. "Who sold you this car?" He glanced at a clipboard. "Adult son," he said. Said he had authority. He kept his face neutral. "Cash deal." 42.5. "Authority from who?" I asked. He shrugged. "From you?" I assumed. I held up the title from my binder. It was in my name alone, issued May 22, 2024. I held up the insurance rider with my signature. I held up the envelope. Rick's eyes flicked to the blue tape. "We didn't open that," he said. "We're not monsters." I slid my thumbnail under the flap. Michael's handwriting was steady. "Jules," he wrote, "if you're reading this, someone moved the car without you. Use the tag to find it. Call Davila. Don't let anyone guilt you out of what we built. I love you. Keep it running." A second slip of paper had a phone number and a name, Rafael Davila, attorney. I had seen that name on the back of a napkin once. Michael had talked to him about making the insurance match reality. I put the letter back in the case and pocketed the AirTag. "One problem," Rick said. "I already have a buyer, out of state. Auction on Tuesday. I need clear title." "You're not getting it," I said. He spread his hands. "Your son signed a bill of sale, forged," I said. "He doesn't own a single bolt." Rick looked at my title again. He grimaced. "We bought in good faith," he said. "We're a dealer." "You bought stolen property," I said. "You'll be made whole by the crook who sold it to you." He glanced at a desk phone. "Let's not throw around stolen yet." It wasn't anger that steadied me, it was procedure. I took photos of their bill of sale and Tyler's signature. I photographed the odometer. I took a quick video of the car where it sat with the case open, and Michael's letter visible. I asked for the buyer's name. Rick wouldn't give it. He said privacy. I wrote down the date and time. Then I drove straight to the BMV title office on Roberts Road and filed an affidavit of fraudulent activity. The clerk's name was Darlene. She wore a sunflower pin and a face that had seen too many people cry across that counter. She took one look at my title and the dealer's copy I printed from the photos and said, "We can place a 10-business-day administrative hold on any transfer attempts." "Place it," I said. My voice didn't shake. Then I went to the Franklin County Sheriff's Office and filed a report for theft of a motor vehicle by conversion. The deputy wrote adult son and cash sale to dealer and owner notified. He gave me a case number. He told me not to confront my son alone. But then I had to confront him. He was at my kitchen table, eating cereal from a mixing bowl like he was 14 again. "You went behind me," he said when I set the report on the table. "You're poisoning the well." "You stole a car," I said. He snorted. "It's just a car. Then you won't mind if I take your wife's wedding ring and sell it for a cruise." "That's different." "No," I said, "it's ownership." He looked at the case number. "You're actually doing this to me?" "You did this to yourself," I said. I wasn't going to argue moral philosophy with a man who planned a Paris reveal on Instagram. "You'll get a letter from a lawyer. Answer it." I dialed Davila from the back porch, where the hydrangeas were wilting in the heat. He didn't pick up. I left a message. "My name is Julia Benton," I said. "My husband was Michael. The garage is empty." He called back within an hour. His voice was calm, like a man walking a beam. "Bring the binder," he said. "Bring the letter, bring the case." By noon, I was in his office downtown, sitting in a chair that squeaked when I exhaled. He read the letter like it was evidence and memory both. He didn't rush. Then he set it down and pulled a yellow pad close. "Here's the roadmap," he said. "We file for replevin in the Court of Common Pleas. Emergency motion. We'll request a writ of seizure so the sheriff can take custody of the vehicle pending a hearing. We'll ask for a temporary restraining order enjoining transfer. You'll need a bond. Likely $15,000. We'll also request damages from whoever transferred it without authority." "What about the dealer?" I asked. "Dealers have obligations," he said. "But you didn't entrust the car to a merchant. Your son did. That matters. The dealer doesn't get good title from a thief in this context. They'll try to be reasonable. If they're not, a judge will make them reasonable." "How long?" I asked. "Fast," he said. "Because of the hold and because the auction is soon. But we need to move today." I wrote a check for an AEO 800200 retainer. I felt both heavy and lighter. He had a paralegal scan every page in the binder. He nodded at the AirTag. "Turn that on," he said. I paired it to my phone and named it Toolbox. A gray dot sprang to life near Hilliard. "There," I said. "Good," he said. "Keep screenshots every hour. That will matter." We filed the complaint electronically at 2:43 p.m. We filed the emergency motion at 2:49. We filed my affidavit at 3:05, attaching photos, the title, the writer, the letter, and the deputy's case number. By 4:20, a judge assigned the case. By 5:10, we had a hearing time for the next morning. Except at 6:17, the dot moved. I watched it crawl to a warehouse near the interstate. I sent Davila the screenshot. He emailed the judge's clerk. He copied the dealer's attorney, who had surfaced exactly when the word replevin landed in his inbox. At 8:30 a.m., we stood in a cold courtroom with buzzing lights. The judge asked 3 questions. "Who owns the car?" he asked. "Is there a risk of irreparable harm?" he asked. "Is there a bond ready?" "I do," I said, and lifted the title. "Yes," Davila said, and pointed to the auction listing he found online and the fact the hold only lasted 10 business days. "Yes," I said, and handed the clerk the bond receipt. "Writ granted," the judge said. "Tro granted through the hearing next week. Sheriff to execute today." Rick's attorney blanched. He asked to be heard. The judge heard him and kept the order anyway. By noon, the sheriff and a tow truck met me at the warehouse. The manager showed a contract. Buckeye Heritage had moved the Mustang to a neutral storage facility for insurance. The AirTag dot had been right on the bay door. The sheriff taped the writ to the glass and had the manager unlock it. The car sat in a row by 3 motorcycles and a boat. "Start it," the deputy said. I did. The engine settled into the uneven idle Michael loved. I watched the manager swallow and step back. "Keys," the deputy said. The manager handed them over. The deputy signed the receipt. The tow driver winched the Mustang onto a flatbed with clean straps. But then the dealer's attorney called Davila's phone while we were still in the parking lot. He put it on speaker. "We already have a buyer en route from Indiana," the attorney said. "You're forcing us into damages. You're overdue for a reason," Davila said. "Unwind your sale. Pursue the proper person for your loss. The owner isn't financing your mistake. We secured the car in Davila's parking garage under a camera that didn't blink." I went home and locked my door. Tyler texted 17 times. The messages slid from outrage to pleading to practical. "Can you at least give us the money back so we can cancel the trip without fees?" I didn't answer. He would get his answer in court. That weekend, I found receipts on his Instagram, because of course he posted them. 2 round-trip tickets, $7,842. A hotel in the 7th arrondissement, $3,180. A dinner reservation set to public, because they liked applause. I took screenshots, I printed them, I placed them in the binder, under a tab labeled Paris. On Tuesday, Buckeye Heritage filed a motion to dissolve the order. They argued I couldn't be harmed because the car was fungible and money could make me whole. They said, family dispute. They said, good faith purchase. They said, adult son. On Wednesday, the judge denied their motion and set the evidentiary hearing for August 15th at 9 a.m. He added one line, "Car shall remain secured by plaintiff pending further order." Except at 2:12 p.m., that same Wednesday, Tyler showed up at my front door with Bree behind him. She held a coffee like a shield. He didn't knock. He pounded. "I can get arrested," I said through the door, "or you can leave." He yelled that I was ruining his marriage. He yelled that Michael would want him to be happy. He yelled that Paris was non-refundable. I listened for a minute because I wanted to hear the line where he realized what he'd done. It never came. I called the deputy whose card I had. He drove by. The pounding stopped. At 9 a.m. on August 15th, we walked into a courtroom with dark wood and an American flag that needed dusting. The judge wore readers low on his nose. He looked at me, at Rick, at the buyer they had summoned by subpoena, at Tyler, who sat too straight in a borrowed blazer, and then he began. Davila called me first. I identified the title. I identified my husband's letter. I identified the binder. I identified the AirTag logs. I identified the insurance rider and the agreed value endorsement. He asked me why the car wasn't fungible. "Because it's the last thing my husband built with his hands," I said. I kept my voice even. "He used this block. He used this paint. He used this garage. You can value it, but you can't replace it." He smiled like a man who liked facts more than speeches. Then he called Darlene from the BMV. She explained the hold. She explained why title hadn't changed hands. She explained how a forged bill of sale can look official until it doesn't. He called the deputy. The deputy explained the report and the writ and the seizure. Then Rick's attorney stood and asked the judge to take judicial notice that Buckeye Heritage was licensed, bonded, and acted in good faith. The judge nodded. "I don't doubt it," he said, "but good faith doesn't turn straw into gold." Then they called Tyler. He walked to the witness stand like a man late to his own wedding. He raised his right hand. He sat. Rick's attorney asked the questions first because they wanted him to say he had permission. He didn't say that. He said he assumed Mom would be fine and that it wasn't that big a deal. "Did you have a power of attorney?" the judge asked, interrupting. "No," Tyler said. "Did you have any written authority to sell the vehicle?" the judge asked. "No," Tyler said. "But, thank you," the judge said. "Next question." Davila stood. "Where is the money?" he asked. Tyler paused. "We paid deposits," he said. "Flights, hotel, some credit card stuff." "How much remains?" Davila asked. "About 26, Tyler muttered. "In cash?" Davila asked. "In checking," Tyler said. "And some is pending?" And you forged your mother's name on a bill of sale? Davila asked. I copied it, Tyler said. On a document you presented as proof of ownership, Davila asked. Tyler swallowed. Yes. No one breathed. The buyer tried to stand. His lawyer pulled him down. The judge took off his readers and rubbed the bridge of his nose like he had a headache shaped like a family. Counsel, he said to Rick's attorney, you should probably focus on unwinding your sale and pursuing Mr. Benton here for your losses. Because your client is not going to pass title through this court based on a forgery. Rick's attorney pivoted to damages. He wanted storage fees and attorney's fees because we overreacted. The judge raised an eyebrow. You can file your counterclaim, he said. You won't like the outcome. At 11:42 a.m., the judge issued his ruling from the bench and signed a 6-page order on the spot. It read like a door closing, quietly and completely. He found I was the sole owner. He found the sale voidable as a matter of law. He ordered the car returned to me permanently. He granted replevin and converted the writ into a permanent order. He ordered Buckeye Heritage to unwind any downstream sale and bear the cost of returning funds to their buyer, noting their remedy lay against the person who sold without authority. He set a follow-up on damages against Tyler in 2 weeks. He invited us to submit fee affidavits. But then he added one more paragraph. It was small, but it mattered. He wrote that Tyler's conduct constituted civil conversion and fraud. He ordered him to return $42,500 within 10 days or face judgment, and he authorized me to record a lien on any real property he owned if he didn't pay. When we walked out, the buyer shook my hand and told me he respected the fight. Rick avoided my eyes, but he emailed a copy of the wire release by 3 p.m. that afternoon. The auction pulled the listing. The sheriff released the car to me from Davila's garage at 5:10. Except the story didn't end there. Tyler didn't pay within 10 days. On August 29th, the judge entered judgment for $42,500 plus $8,200 in attorney's fees, plus $3,480 in storage and tow costs, plus court costs. Total $54,180. Davila recorded the judgment lien against Tyler and Bree's townhouse on Groveport Road. Their mortgage company noticed. Bree called me crying. I listened. Then I emailed her the judge's order and the payment instructions. On September 15th, the first $10,000 hit Davila's trust account. On October 1st, another $8,000. By Halloween, he had paid $22,000 and then stopped. We filed a motion for a debtor's exam. He moved money to avoid embarrassment. The court didn't care about embarrassment. The court cared about numbers and dates and signatures. While that ground through, I did small, stubborn things. I bought a steel bollard and had it cored into the garage floor so a car couldn't roll out without tools. I installed a new deadbolt on the service door. I added a camera with a battery that didn't blink at outages. I put the Pelican case back on the passenger floor and taped it again with fresh blue tape. I tucked the AirTag under the seat where Michael had wanted it, not because I thought the car would run away again, but because he asked me to keep tracking what mattered. People asked whether I forgave my son. Forgiveness felt like a word we give to other people to make them comfortable. I gave him a payment plan and a timeline. I gave him boundaries and a copy of the order that spelled his name correctly. At the damages review, the court added $500 per day if he missed payments after November 30th. He didn't miss November. He missed December and learned that courts mean numbers. He sold his motorcycle to catch up. He found a second job. Bree took in alterations. They didn't go to Paris. They went to a counselor. In March, he came by on a Sunday and knocked. He didn't pound. He asked to see the car. I opened the garage. We stood in the doorway like people looking at a painting that belonged to both of them and neither. He put his hand on the fender where Michael's last fingerprint was trapped forever under clear coat. I'm sorry, he said. His voice was small. I thought it was just metal. It was never just metal, I said. But metal remembers the hands that made it. You can choose what you make now. He looked at the bollard. He nodded. He didn't ask for the keys. He didn't ask for money. He asked if he could help me change the oil. Get a pan, I said. He did. That spring, Buckeye Heritage sent a letter asking me to consider consigning the car for a national auction. They included glossy photos of bright lights and a hammer mid-fall. I filed the letter under no. I wrote "not for sale" on the folder tab in thick Sharpie. For me, not them. On the anniversary of Michael's death, I drove the Mustang out of the neighborhood at dawn. The streets were empty. The air had a bite that made the exhaust sweeter. I drove past the deli with cold brew and the tire shop and Buckeye Heritage, and then I kept going. Out past the fairgrounds and the warehouse where the sheriff had laughed at paperwork while the tow driver checked his straps. Past a billboard that promised Europe on points. Past a pawn shop with guitars and rings and regret behind glass. I parked at a park where the Scioto slid by like time. I turned off the engine and listened to metal tick as it cooled. I put my palm on the steering wheel where Michael's hand had taught it to be steady. In the glove box, the Pelican case waited with the letter, the title, the tag, and a future he'd prepared without telling me because he knew something I didn't. People will try to sell your history when they can't make their own. I thought about the empty rectangle of concrete I had stared at, the exact size of grief. I thought about a phone call that pulled me out of it. I thought about molasses-thick oil and blue tape, and a judge who quoted basic sense. I thought about my son, who had learned the weight of a number only when a court wrote it down. I started the engine and pulled back into the stream of a city waking up. The car felt alive and ordinary at once, which is another word for safe. When I backed into my garage and shut the door, I touched the bollard with my shoe like knocking on wood, and the empty space from that first morning finally felt full again.